I don't care with the light.
Oscars month concludes with Clint Eastwood coming back to the Western in the 90s and taking home Oscar gold with Unforgiven. Stay with us. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast, the final episode in our month of Best Picture Oscar-winning films. Eric, we had some technical difficulties. If you listened to the last episode about The Departed, I crowed and cried to the heavens that we were closing out the month.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like editing all of that out. That's the
Hey, I don't blame you.
I'm so lazy. I just left it.
Hey, it happens. So
this is the true final episode. Yes, here we are. Unforgiven, part 2 for those in the know. But we're gonna bring you this one. So this was from the 90s. Joining us, Sawdust, Roland Uruci, from the dusty saloons out west with his cowboy hat. He is the host of the Ready Speaker podcast. You can find that on YouTube. That is a video podcast. And you can see Roland right in that same setting, talking about movies and TV series and giving his analytical dissertation on them. Yeah. Is that a good word?
That is a good
Very good word.
Dissertation is
a very good word.
You do thesis.
His thesis, his little mini thesis.
I think they are. They are. They're
it's a fine podcast. It's we love it.
Good stuff.
And good you stuff. Picked
out. We'll drop a link in the show notes for him.
Yeah.
Free. That's why he comes on our podcast. He comes for the advertising.
That gets where
he comes for the advertising. He stays for the conversation.
I love the hat wearing. It's all good.
And also joining us on the other side of my screen is Mr. Nick Leshi. He is the proprietor of the online saloon known as the City of Kick blog. So mosey on over to that. We'll drop a link in the show notes as well. And saddle up to Nick's blog. It's an entertainment blog, so he covers all things entertainment. So thank you, Nick.
I had a couple of friends who tuned into my blog because they heard you mention it. They're like, when do you update the darn thing? So now I gotta write more.
I put you on the hook.
See that? See that?
You give me something, I'm going to promote it. And then it's up to you now to provide that content.
Now
I can't write your blog for you too.
I think you did a nice blog about the character Puck. I think that was really good.
I think one of Nick's most recent articles was this new movie coming out called Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr.
Oh my goodness!
They weren't sure if he was a bankable actor, but this new film Iron Man that Nick writes about talks about the gamble that they took on this actor. So
who knows where it's going to go?
If you want the latest in movie information, City of Kick is where to go.
There you go.
He does update it, and he does great work there.
Thank you.
He does.
Check that out.
He is the professor. We call him the professor.
We call him the professor. Even other people, even Christy and other guests are calling him the professor now. So
I'll take it. It's cool. I could
be called worse things. It's sticking.
He's the professor. And of course, Eric and I are your congenial hosts of the 3324 podcast. So you can kind of belly up to the bar weekly for us every Thursday with new episodes that come out about music and movies. And they are only enhanced and made greater by our guests, which we always appreciate having them on. And it's always fun. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Unforgiven.
Yeah.
Stats always first. If this was Nick's thing, it would be, this is the syllabus. So the syllabus dictates that we do. The syllabus dictates that we always talk about stats first in this class.
Yeah.
So we're going to go for it. This was Unforgiven was released in August of 1992, written by David Webb Peoples, directed by Mr. Clint Eastwood, who is 6 feet 4 inches, by the way. Tall drink of water. And Gene Hackman is 6'2". $14.4 million budget, made $159 million. Box office, nice. Eastwood is known for working economically, so I don't know what he would do with a big budget anyway. He'd probably just, give the money back. Nominated for 9 Oscars, and it won 4. It won for Best Picture, which is why we're doing this this show. Mm-hmm. Eastwood won for Best Director, took home Oscar Gold. Best Supporting Actor, Mr. Gene Hackman. Of course, really good in this. And then it won for editing. So, a well-deserved one, not the departed editing style of slapdash and whatever's left on the floor. This is tightly and nicely edited film. a way to end our 5-episode cycle of films. So let's see. Roland, did you see this in the theater? I didn't. I didn't catch it in the theater. It was an after effect.
Yeah, I actually did see this in the theater. I think it's one of the first movies I actually saw with my wife.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah, a little date night when we were engaged. So I think it was one of the first movies we saw. And even then, it impressed me. It's just a different kind of telling of the cowboy story, and probably an evolution of the Man with No Name from the spaghetti westerns. And that's what hit me right away about how solid it was, and the storytelling, the colors used, the palette, everything, the setting. And I know economical. It doesn't feel economical. It feels like a really rich, big budget film. And I know we've talked about this before, how he was as economical. A very strict budget, always on the deadline as a director. But this feels like there's so much effort into it. Maybe great planning, great story, great team. I don't know what it is, but the quality of it is really elevated above what you see westerns with a lot more money. They'll just throw it together, like you said.
Yeah. Well, Eastwood as an actor is well versed in the genre too, so he kind of brings a lot of his knowledge, even from the days in the 50s when he was on the TV show Rawhide. So he's been as iconic as John Wayne was. He was the modern Western iconic hero. So, good point, Roland. That he was steeped in it enough that probably through osmosis, he was also able just to know what instinctually he wanted, what was right, and having a great screenplay. Nick, what about you? When did you come across Unforgiven?
Yeah, I saw it in the theaters too. I hadn't met my wife yet, but I think she would have liked it because it's a Western. It's really cool. This was a script that had been floating around since the 70s, from what I heard. And then they presented it to Eastwood in the 80s, and he had done so many Westerns, but he felt he wasn't ready for it, from what I heard. He was waiting for the right time. So 92 was the right time. It really deconstructed those Western tropes, what people think of, the clear-cut black and white, good versus evil. And it's like, who are really the good guys and who are the bad guys? And, violence, playing on that. So really put everything on its ear. And I think he said this might be the last one he'll ever do. I mean, he's been making movies now nonstop all these decades after, and he hasn't done a Western again. That was it. That was his last Western. So that was like the coda, I think, to it. It's tough to, what else does he have to say? I mean, this was really a great film. I remember seeing it and loving it. And it really is probably my top 3 Westerns of all time. And that's saying a lot because there's been so many great ones.
Absolutely. So many iconic ones. Eric, you've been a champion of this film since I can remember. You've always been raving to me about Unforgiven, about how much you really love this film. And I'm guessing you were on it from the jump.
Well, I didn't see it in the theater.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
And that'll do it for this episode of the 33rd. I can tell it's very uncomfortable.
But I had heard a lot of great things. So of course I didn't get a chance to get to the theater to see it for whatever reason. But I remember buying it at blind. I never saw it, but I bought it. I think I bought it on Laserdisc. When Laserdiscs were a thing. So I think that's how I first saw it. Yeah, that's how I first saw it. And I loved it instantly.
You've always been a champion of it to me, of just in conversations, Unforgiven. And I certainly didn't come to it until late in the game. Well after it came out. It was kind of there. Maybe a little bit of that Eastwood bias of all the stuff he was doing before. He carries the Dirty Harry with him. He carries that typecasting. He does goofy stuff also. He does like Pink Cadillac. Very hard to, like, for a guy that really is typecast as like Dirty Harry and a cowboy, he would do some of these other strange films. And I think at the point I'm like, oh, okay, just whatever, Clint Eastwood. Like that attitude that probably most people had of, it's Clint Eastwood. It's another Western. What's the big deal, right? Well, like, what's the big deal? Like Roland said, 92, this came out. 91, the year before, the best picture was Dances with Wolves, which was a revisionist Western, right? Another way of looking, and obviously I don't think this was made with that in mind, but you started to coincidentally see a change in how this genre was approached, right? The Dances with Wolves was very sympathetic towards the
Mhm.
plight of the Native Americans and really looked at it from their point of view as a culture and what, how they reacted to things and what their reality was. And the white guys coming in were not the heroes and not the saviors. They were most decidedly the adversary. So along
Mhm.
comes this film, which again, like if you've got that bias, it's Clint Eastwood Western, this is something different, right? Yeah,
It is.
this plays with those notions of good and evil, and yeah, the good guys don't always wear the white hat, and the
Mhm.
bad guys aren't always wearing a black hat. And in this case, it's almost opposite. Let's go through the cast a little bit before we go any further.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got Gene Hackman as William Money. We've got Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman is Little Bill Daggett. I'm sorry, Clint Eastwood is William Money. Morgan Freeman as Ned Logan, who was fantastic in this film. Richard Harris in a small but important role as English Bob. James Woolvett as the Schofield Kid. Saul Rubinek, great character actor. W.W.
Oh, yeah.
Beauchamp, Mr. Beauchamp.
Yeah.
Francis Fisher, who was, I think, was already dating Clint Eastwood as Strawberry Alice. Anna Thompson as Delilah Fitzgerald. She's the prostitute that gets cut up, which kind of sets things in motion. We'll go to David Mucci as Quick Mike, and he was the one of the guys that he was the guy that actually cut her up. I think we'll stop there. Anthony James as Skinny Dubois. He's the owner of the House of Ill Repute, as it were.
Another fine character actor from the past. He did several Clint Eastwood movies.
Thin.
Yeah,
he's kind of got looks like kind of Gargamel from the Smurfs a little bit. Like he could kind of get a live action thing of that. He could be Gargamel. He's got that. That
70s TV. He was all over 70s television. Oh yeah,
that vulture-ish look. He's kind of like always a guy hanging around in the back. So
he was always the hotel clerk.
I always wondered
or drug addict or hippie or something. Yeah.
I always wondered if the character Skinny was named for him in particular, or if they already had the character and they were like, okay, he could play Skinny. Well,
there was another character called Fatty, and one of Little Bill's assistants. It was Fatty. Yeah. Well, Fatty, go with Mike and bring him back to the bar tea. So
you fat man.
They called it as they saw it, I suppose.
Yeah,
Strawberry Alice had kind of strawberry red hair. They kind of kept it on the straight and narrow. Let's see. Basically, so what this is about in a nutshell. We'll just do a little quick plot. Is a prostitute gets her face cut up pretty severely during an interaction with a customer, and as a result of the lack of consequences for it. A bunch of the prostitutes decide to get together and put a bounty out for killing the two guys that were involved in cutting her up. And this is about a visitation on or a meditation on violence. I think it's about human nature. I watched it again, because we just we had other difficulties, so I did give it a rewatch, and I came away with a couple of extra notions as well. But there is this. Like we said, it flips the Western trope of good versus evil. So let's start there with William Money, played by Clint Eastwood, who is, when we catch up with him, he's got two young kids. His wife is gone; she passed away, and he's barely. Roland, I think I'd say barely making ends meet. The pigs are sick.
He's a big farmer, and he's every bad bit of luck has hit them. That's what
it's a very sparse looking farm too. I mean, it doesn't look like he's doing very well.
No, it's a one-room house, mud brick house, and he's in the middle of nowhere where no one goes. He's probably got the worst settled piece of land in the area. And when the Schofield kid shows up saying, "Let's go get this bounty," he's just more worried about someone's going to kill him of his past deeds. And even that plays a lot. But the character, you learn so much within those couple of minutes, that 1-2 scene about his background and where he stands in it, of him thinking. And again, I think I mentioned this even last time we were talking about it. These are actors, you can see they did their work, and their characters thinking about what's going on. So it's actually happening as you're watching. They're doing this great scene of him thinking, okay, where do I land with this? And he offers up an opportunity to make a lot of money for killing somebody who deserves it, in his words, because they cut up a woman.
Yeah.
So, and even that's an interesting thing. It's not a grand thing. It's not saving the town. It's literally a cut up prostitute. But he has that moral gauge a little bit. Okay, well, that's somebody, I could go back into that, for that reason. If it was for anything else, I don't know if he could. and that also changes the Western sort of ideal. Is it always about money? Is it always? And I had a couple of takeaways too from rewatching it, and I thought it was actually even more important to rewatch it again, which it did give me a lot more to think about of what a strong message this film has about violence, about wishing for violence until it really happens. I think there's Little Bill says at one point, who's really a killer? And you find out there's only two guys in the whole film who are really killers. It's Little Bill and William Money. No one else is really a killer. No, everyone else is petrified by it.
Yeah, both have very, very strong reputations, so yeah. Nick, you had something to say?
Just the exaggeration of when they're trying to recruit him, like they're saying, well, how she was cut up and then cut her ear off, and so it's just, it keeps getting more exaggerated and more exaggerated, and that's where like all these stories about these heroes have been exaggerated too. And I think one of the themes too is the hero's the one that survives. Like if this movie ended differently, Little Bill might have been the hero, right? So it all depends on who's lucky enough to survive. And I think that's how it retells these stories. It's not so much this romanticized version of this glorification of violence. It's violence is ugly and awkward and, just luck. Well, sometimes, and these stories that are told, it's like you hear so many different versions of, what Little Bill did and what, Will Money did, and, what is the truth? You don't know until it happens, And I think the moral thing, if I could just push that again too, it's like the reason the prostitutes get so incensed is that they don't feel justice was done, right? Because this woman's been cut up and she's just a piece of property to them. And Little Bill doesn't really punish them. He's like, all right, we'll just get some horses. You got to pay a fine because, to pay for the money that, Skinny's lost now because the prostitutes.
Well, first he was going to whip them, right? And then Skinny, the bar owner, produces a contract. And he's like, well, these women are actually like, I have a contract and kind of like property. And Little Bill's like, oh, like property? And he's like, yeah. So then it changed from punishment to reimbursement for your property. Right, it became that type of a. This is how we'll adjudicate this. We're not gonna punish them. They're gonna replace the value or the perceived value of the property, and that got them even more mad. Right? They're like, we're not,
they're enraged. They lost all
us with horses now.
Exactly.
They lost all power.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever they never had any to begin with, which back in those days is the way it was. But yeah, that really set them off and. That's why they do this.
Yeah, the bounty. They conspire then to get all their money together. Just to go back on what Nick said about Schofield Kid, when he first meets William Money, he tells what happened to the prostitute, and then they go and get their friend Ned Logan, played by William's friend Ned Logan, played by Morgan Freeman. And when William Money relates it, he adds even more to the story. So to your point of it got even more acknowledged, like what happened to her got even worse. And it's kind of like that's how those things were like you said, there was no codifying information and there was no report that someone brought with them and said this is what happened. It just became word of mouth, and maybe if I make it even sound even worse, I'll get the buy-in from my friend because Morgan Freeman's character was really like, we're past this. We're past our prime. This is crazy stuff. And even William Money, Clint Eastwood's character seems to have been, quote unquote, found God, meaning he seems like my wife fixed me of my evil ways. I realize I'm a wicked man. Almost kind of beating himself up internally on a regular basis about, I used to drink, I used to curse, I did all these bad things. On this watching though, Nick, I'm not too sure I believe him.
It's hard to tell who to believe, right? Because everybody has all these stories around them. Little Bill had stories about, they thought he was dead, because he was drunk and fell off a horse, right? And, British Bob has all these stories. Then you find out, because Little Bill was there, what really happened with that two gun guy, right? And even Will Money, all these things about him killing women and children. Then later you find out like he blew up a bridge or something like that, blew up something that killed women and children. So it's like, did he do it intentionally? We don't know. But that was definitely something that was weighing on him. And maybe that was part of it, meeting the woman that would become his wife, that turned him around.
Mm.
And the way that Beauchamp writes these stories just glorifies it. Even the beginning, the little crawl at the beginning that kind of talks about, introduces the stuff, and then at the very end, who knows what to believe? Did he really survive and go off to San Francisco to start?
I have an interesting theory about that. I have an interesting theory. I'll tell you guys afterwards about that end, which I think because he talks about spectacles. For the Schofield kid needs spectacles. He's nearsighted.
That's what he wants to spend money on.
I'll give you money spectacles, and here's money to get yourself set up. And I think he became a writer and wrote the story about William Money. It reads like one of those little novels. And
that's a very interesting notion. That's a
that was like I was thinking of Beauchamp with the glasses. He's the only one who has glasses.
I feel like Beauchamp just ran off after that. Right. I could have gotten killed. I don't know.
But I think the Schofield guy, he lived it. I was like, no, that was my thing at the end. I was like,
I kind of like that theory. I really do. I think
it's plausible.
Yeah, I think it there could be something to that.
Again, me just thinking out loud. But it's a really and the interesting thing too for me when I was rewatching it again is that the people who had the most violent history besides English Bob, who just like killing people. That's what he seemed. He seemed more like a person who just like killing people. But Little Bill and William Money, they were trying to avoid violence at all costs, extreme violence. Little Bill kicks ass. He doesn't just shoot people.
On this rewatch, Roland, I almost started to pick up that Gene Hackman's character almost had a little bit of a sadistic.
I think they tried to hold it back. They knew that. They knew they were evil.
When especially in that first scene when after the prostitute was cut and the two guys are tied up, and Strawberry Alice, it really comes at him and is really like really approaching Little Bill and yelling at him in front of everybody, and he brings her to the bar.
Yeah,
and he kind of like starts talking. There's a little bit of some menace there. And it seems
it's definitely menace. But what does he say? He says, haven't we seen enough blood tonight?
Yeah, but
he doesn't want to hang him. Again, that's just my perspective.
It almost seems like he's trying to. I got the impression that he was shielding his, much like William Money is hiding behind his wife and drinking. Most of the time he blames everything he did because he was drunk half the time.
Yeah.
I think Little Bill now is using his office as a shield.
Definitely.
to act like he's a holier than thou guy when he is as worthless as any of them. And and that leads to English Bob. So Nick mentioned English Bob by the great Richard Harris. Such a small, basically a glorified cameo. Comes into Big Whiskey, which is the town that Gene Hackman is the sheriff of, and where this incident happened. He's the first assassin to make his way there, and you from the beginning he's got a contempt for Americans, Eric, right? With the guy with the guy on the train with him.
Yeah, president. Somebody was it was an assassination attempt on the president. On the president at whoever was president at the time. I think it was Garfield, might have been. And he's just poking fun at and he's like, "Oh, you
John Bull,
the Queen," like because Britain is better.
Nobody would shoot a queen or a king.
But I don't really think he gives a shit about anything except killing, except showing off. He's got that bravado and that he just has no remorse or anything for it. He just and he's building that reputation, which is why he's got Beauchamp with him. That's how we first meet Beauchamp.
And Beauchamp is his quote unquote biographer. So he's
writing his story.
Spinning those tales of the Old West, and that's a part of this too. Is back then, right? You could create your own legend.
Yep.
Because it was again the West and these towns were far enough away and not so densely populated that you could revise your own stories and tell it and sell it as your own, right? And I think some of that is what created some of these things were real, like the Corral was real, were real things. But then some of these other legends of the West could be just self-propagandizing, right?
It makes you think. It makes you think about Wyatt Earp and Billy the Kid and all of these these grand figures that were they really that big? Did they do the things that they, so yeah, things get, that's what this film is really good at is sort of deconstructing that in a way,
playing with that notion
and putting that on display and debunking it pretty much, debunking all this nonsense, because it's just things just aren't that grandiose. I mean, especially when it comes to gunplay. Not everybody's good with a gun in the Old West. Not everybody was a gunfighter and they could shoot, and so that plays out a lot in this film. So,
and all the reasons for that gunplay are not always noble either. In the book version, English Bob is defending a woman, from an evil man, and it turns out, Gene Hackman's character, Little Bill, actually happened to be at that very incident that is recounted in the book, and he offers a different take on it and saying, well, it didn't really happen that way, and this guy's full of hot air. Not
such a great scene.
All over the place. Just at the crap. Yeah. Literally got the shit kicked out of him. I mean, it was boots. It was boots all the way. And he just got totally destroyed. So he's in jail, and Beauchamp starts to become enamored with Little Bill, and his regaling Beauchamp of his more, I guess, truthful but just as brutal take on history. And like Nick said, it's not always about being who's fastest, because that's what Beauchamp actually says. This guy that got killed, two-gun Cochran, was supposedly a quicker draw, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win a gunfight, because it is about luck. It's about misfires. It's about not aiming. There's so many different things that Little Bill kind of really understands the nature of, right? Almost like the way like Hannibal Lecter talks about killing it, like meaning he's very clinical about it. He understands the nuances of it, and is able to break it down about taking your time and shooting and understanding.
It's because he's got that reputation of working those hard towns. So I would imagine the sadistic nature of Little Bill. I mean, he was probably a lot worse before he became a lawn man. He was probably a lot like Clint Eastwood, actually. I would think.
I think they're both.
Roland, I would put that all three of them were the same, because when English Bob meets Little Bill for the first time, he said, I thought you were dead, and you were drunk on a horse. So I'm guessing that these guys were all bad men.
All drinking.
But Little Bill was able to take advantage, right, and parlay whatever he was into going into being a sheriff. So he was still a bad person, right? And
that's a commentary on the West. If you think about it, that's even a commentary on the West, where a lot
of sheriffs were just at one point on the other side of the law.
Or they went into entertainment. They were part of some sort of rodeo show, and some people just got lost as farmers. So that was a great way to show like three different paths a killer of that era could go. And once they brought that horror, it's crazy.
It's interesting to know too that like you mentioned, in Clint is living in this ramshackle house. He's not a good farmer. He's not a very good farmer. Neither is Bill. He's trying to build a house. He's trying to settle down in this peaceful. He thinks this is his dream house. He's building this thing, and he's the worst carpenter in the world. He's a shitty carpenter. So it kind of says something about who these men are, that they're just trying to. I think they're trying to put a mask on, in a sense,
be something
trying to cover their past. Yeah, and frankly, the only character that had a past who rode with Clint was Morgan Freeman. He actually did move on. He did become a good farmer.
Yeah.
He was probably the only person in this film that actually succeeded in forgetting about it, that violent past.
The point is, he wanted to revisit it again.
Yeah, he can't even pull that trigger at the end.
Couldn't do it again.
Yeah, he's like, what do we do? Yeah, what do we need to do this for? Because he didn't even care about the money aspect of it, and that's very interesting, Eric. Because there's the scene when English Bob arrives in town, and all the bullshit deputies are like having a conversation, and they're talking. Oh, what did Little Bill say? What did Little Bill say?
Yeah,
and the guy's like, what was he scared? He goes, well, he wasn't scared, but you can't make a right angle in that house for shit. He kept saying he's a horrible carpenter. Right, which to that point is Gene Hackman's character is trying to be something that he's not as well. He thinks he's this fancy man. He's going to build a house and sit out on his porch and smoke a pipe and watch the sun. And he's not. He's just as brutal, sadistic, and vindictive as the worst of them.
Yeah.
It's just that now he has a holier than thou attitude is that the people that he used to run with or probably be on the side of are now his adversaries. And so now he's got this kind of attitude of, well, we're not going to have that in here, and we're not going to allow that. And you guys are the worst of the worst and scum. And when he's narrating to Beauchamp, assassins are the worst type of people and people of low character.
Yeah.
Like he's
moral character.
Yeah, he's on some moral high ground, and he's really not. He dispenses some of the most brutal beatings and punishment.
I mean, he killed Ned,
and he thinks he's doing the right thing. He honestly thinks that this is how he enforces the law. The gunplay,
he likes it.
I know, most certainly he loves it. I'm sure, but it's like, but I think,
right? Because he goes,
but he definitely hides behind it, though. Yes, I think absolutely. And it's this, the whole thing with the enforcing of taking the guns away from strangers as they come into town. The whole issue of gun control too. That's a very contemporary,
very common thing in the West
that they're dealing with. Yeah, and the West, and again, it's like he has that power. He's got I'm going to disarm you, but I can basically do whatever the hell I want if I want to. If I don't like you, you're done.
Yeah. Once he's got the gun away, he beats them. Just like
you feel every kick, when he's beating up English Bob, man. I that scene is just so. I watched it again today, and I was just kind of like, oh my god, like I could just. I don't even know how they even filmed that scene, but man, you could. I mean, because he's a big guy, Gene Hackman, so you could just feel the power behind that.
And when he's beating up Clint, the same thing. I mean, Clint, Will Money, he's trying so hard not to drink, and the bottle's right there, and he's getting sick from the weather, and they beat the crap out of him, So it's like, I just think
because he was getting sick and just and it's funny because we talked about creating your own legend and or that type of a thing where, William Money is trying to forget his own legend, right? Yeah. He doesn't want a part of that. He kind of disavows it and is really kind of modest, I think he does remember. I think he uses the excuse of I was drunk all the time to not remember. Yeah. Because when he does get sick, he starts to have visions of these people that he killed and things that he did. And I saw snakes and I saw this guy's head bashed in. And remember when I shot him and his teeth came out the back? So he remembers this stuff.
Of course.
I think he uses that as a crutch as a coping mechanism. Roland, what do you think? Because he always says, I was drunk, I was this and that. But then he also he does remember these things.
No, I think he definitely uses that as his shield to not talk about it and not to inflame or inflate the instances. Unlike Little Bill, they're talking about very granular details, and he's a showman. Like Little Bill's a showman. He likes beating people up in front of other people, and he leans into his history, into his own myth. Whereas William Money, he's like, listen, I don't want to talk about the myth. I don't want to talk about what happened. Even the point where Schofield Kid's like, oh, this is what happened, and then Ned says, I remember you killed 3 guys, not 2 guys, because I don't really remember. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it didn't matter to him.
Actually, Roland, he does like to talk about it. He doesn't want to, but he does. If you notice, like the scene around the campfire, he won't shut up about it. Ned's like, yeah, you were crazy son of a bitch back in those days, Will. Like he's trying to go to sleep, right? He's like, okay, enough, but he just keeps talking. And he's just trying to convince himself
definitely
of this. Almost to the point of annoyance, because it's annoying the audience as well as the people around him, because he's just going on, and it's not, to your point earlier, Dean. It's not genuine. I don't think it's genuine either. I think it's his late wife talking. I think just more or less hiding. Yeah,
but in a way, though, I think he believed he could be redeemed. Right. I think there's a lot of redemption in this story too, about all the sins that these people have committed in their own eyes, the violence, and how it's not pretty, and then what they want to be remembered for, right? They want to be remembered for the legends. They want Little Bill wants to just build a house and retire, and then it turns out where it's all it doesn't. You could get killed every day, right? So, and I think that's one of the lines that Little Bill says, right? About killing a man. It's like you take away everything that he had and everything he can be. So there is no more hope once that's it, So
and Little Bill certainly once Beauchamp attached himself to him, he certainly was even more interested in creating his own legend. And there's scene when they're walking, the house is leaking because he's a shitty carpenter, but he's so not even, he's like, oh, open the window so I can, throw the pan out. But he's, again, going through all these stories and all the, he's now taken the place of English Bob. And Beauchamp is probably just happy that he's just not going to, like, he'll connect with anybody that can kind of probably make him
he's a
fanboy. He can kind of, transcribe these stories into, but Little Bill is such a, it turns out that he's so vain. Like he tries to hide it, but he really is.
Didn't you think he was going to beat the crap out of Beauchamp when he mentioned shitty carpenter who built? It looked like he was just going to go and attack him.
You should hang the carpenter, and he's like, "What did you say?" He's like, no, forget it. Like Beauchamp is pretty good at reading the room, and he knows like okay, I probably shouldn't have said that, or he's just a coward maybe, but. He
pisses himself when he found out.
Like, what did you say? Because all the scenes, Hackman is so proud of Bill. Every time they come to the house, he's on the roof, he's shingling, he's like happy, and then it's like, oh, Little Bill, you got to come into town somehow. It's like, oh, like goddamn, like I have to leave, or it's raining. What do we got to do this now? Like his house is a happy place.
He always seems to change on a dime, right? He's always that in every scene, even with Skinny when he comes and he hits his thumb and he's like, I'm building my porch, like I have my pipe, and then he's like, these guys, and you could run, and then all of a sudden he's like, you could run off them whores. Like he just totally changes, like his demeanor is like, and then Skinny's like, okay, that's like he knows. All right, he means business now, so I'm walking away.
He definitely leans into
he's a little bit of
anger, everything. He leans into it a lot.
He's a funny moral guy. Like he'll look aside at certain things, and then other things he'll let by. Who knows besides the prostitution, what else is going on in that town? You got the billiard sign, billiards upstairs. What's upstairs, right?
There's no there's billiards. No, the table we used to put 2 years ago. Let's talk a little bit about the Schofield Kid, because he is the would-be assassin, and we talk about creating your own legend. He comes prepared with his own legend of killing 5 people, and I'm going to kill these 2 son of a bitches, and I need help, and he sees the condition that Clint Eastwood is in, and he's very like, you don't seem like you're much of anything. Like I could have gotten the drop on you, and you're not really all this and that, and a lot of smart talk even with Ned, and just kind of really kind of like puffing his chest up in the creation, right, of his own legend. He comes and here's my story, and all you have back then is to take it, right? Like until you hear otherwise. Why would somebody come up to you and say they killed 5 people unless they were and saying you're an assassin? Oh, okay, we'll go with it.
That was definitely part of, like you're saying, that legend factory sort of process of that era of going back and looking at books and looking at the pulp books that were coming out then, and creating these legends. As long as they can get somebody, just give him a name. What gun does he carry? A Schofield. Okay, he's the Schofield Kid.
Yeah, that's why.
Easy. Done.
He's like, you from Schofield? He's like, no, I have this.
And he's actually a pretty good shot. He just can't see for shit, right? He can't see in front of his face. Realize
that's the thing too. Ned doesn't buy any of it. He's like probably the only one that doesn't. He knows he's full of crap.
He asks Clint, like, do you really think? And Clint's like, no.
Yeah.
You got to go like until you hear other. Because he had all the big talk and all the, the pomp of English Bob, right? How English Bob was full of his own legend, and that whole, and had that air of
hoity-toity,
of how he was better than everybody. And Schofield Kid kind of had that a little bit, like very short-tempered and doesn't have time to suffer fools. But he got a dose pretty quick when it came to them finding the first cowboy. And it comes time to kill him. Morgan Freeman's character Ned is the only one that's good with a rifle, because Clint's character is gun only, and Schofield Kid can't see. So they come across these guys in like a bluff in a valley area, and Ned takes the first shot, and he hits the horse, and the horse falls. That the guy they're supposed to kill, he falls, and the guy's trapped under him. And it's an interesting scene, because the Schofield Kid is like, oh, did you get him? Did you shoot him? Did you kill him? Like he wants like update.
What's going on?
Did you kill him? Did you kill him? You had him? and Clint is like, you got, Ned. I mean, Clint Eastwood's character is like, you get it, because he's starting to like kind of crawl away from the horse, and he's like, Ned, you gotta finish it before he gets undercover. And Roland, he can't do it.
No, he can't do it. No. That's when he decides he's not the man.
His face just drops.
Yeah, it's a really powerful scene. I mean it's such a powerful scene, because the guy Clint finally gets him with a shot to the belly, and they're just waiting for him to bleed out. And even when he's screaming, getting water, slow death. This is the reality of violence. That's a big part of this story. Is you all everybody wishes about bravado and I want revenge, and they're raising their hands up. But when it comes home, it's very like unsettling to see it. It's easy to see it in print. It's easy to see it as someone tells a story. But when you see it in front of you, I think that's a constant theme through the whole movie, is that once they see the violence, even when the prostitutes, once they actually do both killings, they go, I didn't think they'd actually do it.
Yeah,
that was the girl who got cut. Because I didn't think anybody would actually do it. To them, it was like, I didn't think we would do this.
It became real, like all the violence, like that violence, and Morgan Freeman, Ned, was just like checked out. Like he was even, because then Clint took over the rifle. He's like, Ned, how many shots are left? And he was still like in a daze, kind of like out of it. And he's like, Ned, how many shots are left? He's 2. He kind of, I don't know if he had some PTSD with everything he did in the past that came, until then it was like an adventure. Right? It's like, we're traveling, we're going, we're going to kill these guys, but it wasn't. Then they happened upon them, and then
it became real.
I think, Eric, like you said, like Ned became civilized. He became reformed. Like that was, we did that when we were young and full of piss and all that kind of stuff and crazy. And he wasn't crazy anymore. He settled down. He had a wife. Yeah, and just shooting the horse was enough for him. Like that. He didn't
make the horse fall on top of him.
He didn't shoot the guy, and that was enough for him to be like, "What am I doing here?"
Yeah, and then the reality sets in, and it speaks to the writing too, right there, because the Schofield kid, because he can't see. Do you think that if he had seen this happen to the kid, I don't know if he would have been as like, excited about it, because if he had seen this kid bleeding out and the reality
begging
of that,
for water, and
begging for water,
hit though, and the guy starts crying. Schofield's kid is like, just give him the, it's your fault. If you hadn't cut that girl up, like he's trying to like place the blame on him. It's like,
but I think it's, I think, and because it's getting to him, like I think the reality is setting in, even though he can't see anything, and that just adds that little bit of. And Clint the whole time doing nothing, but he's picking at the pebble. He's just
waiting.
You give him a drink of water. God damn it! Yeah. Like he's,
we're not going to shoot you.
We're not going to shoot you. I'm here for business. I'm taking care of business. This is it. It's
very detached from it. Very
kind of like
And then when the kid kills the guy in the latrine, right? He's up close, so he saw it, and once he sees it, that's it. That's when he's like, I can't deal with. I can't believe what I did.
He goes, I caught it.
He's trying.
He was kind of creating the legend, and then
he's just like, I can't do it.
That's
anymore.
When he says, he's never going to breathe again, and he's never going to, and any of that, like the reality of what happened, just the reality of the violence. Right? All because of a trigger, all because I pulled the trigger. It boils it down into that scene where it's him and Schofield, where Clint and Schofield kid are by the tree. And he's like, I guess he had it coming. He's like, we all got it coming, right? Because it's,
that's.
And he is so business. Clint is just so business until he finds out what happens to Ned. He's like, no, this is just business.
Yeah, this was mercenary work, and that's why he was so detached. There was no, there was no drunken,
no personal element to it,
being wild
fight.
And crazy. Right. Just I need money so my
once
kids
it became personal, and then he reverted. He slipped back into his own self.
This is after.
That's a pretty important thing, I think. Because he told the kid, "You're my only friend now."
Yeah,
and this is after he recovered from being sick, and that discussion with
getting a beating from little Bill too.
Yeah, little Bill, and he was almost close to death, right? So he comes back from this, and now he's really all business at this point. He's just I got to do this. I got to there's no turning back.
And that's just to go back though. That scene, Ned decides to leave the trio and says, look, I don't even care about the money. I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm leaving now. I'm not going to meet you anywhere. And they're like, okay, whatever, we'll do it. And then Ned gets captured and brought to Little Bill, and they're just like they put him through a lot. And then Clint Eastwood, there's a scene, he just comes up behind Morgan Freeman on his shoulder. And he goes, it's not going to be easy like it was. And before that, it wasn't easy. And it seemed like I'm going to hurt you bad. Like he was taking delight and relishing in
sadism in that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He had an audience
that
too.
Righteousness. Like, I am the hand of good, and I'm wiping evil out. And he was just as, again, like, that's not the way you do it, right? If there was justice, there would have been some type of court, perhaps, some kind of jury.
Little Bill liked the attention. He liked being in the middle of it.
What's that?
Every scene, Little Bill loved the attention. Almost every scene, he has an audience. He makes sure he has an audience.
He's judge, jury,
and he likes the guy. Listen to me. I'll tell you what's going to happen, and this is it.
And what did he say to British Bob when he left? He's like, "If I see you, I'm just going to shoot you on sight. Just assume it's self-defense.
I figure I'm just going to kill you."
So that's it. Justifying cold-blooded murder, right? I just see you. I assume you're going to come kill me, so it's self-defense, right?
That's a great scene when English Bob is in jail and Little Bill gives Beauchamp the gun. He says, "Point the gun. Cock the trigger. Cock it back, and this is how you kill somebody." And then Beauchamp's like, "Well, what if I give it to English Bob?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Give it to him." So he brings the gun over to Richard Harris, and that's what Gene Hackman wants. He wants him to take that gun just so he can shoot him.
Just as long as he touched it,
he just wants to blow him away. And English Bob decides not to.
He knows.
And then Gene Hackman unloads the gun, and it turns out the gun was loaded. And Richard Harris, English Bob's expression is like, "Shit."
Yeah.
I might have had a chance.
Yeah.
I could have.
I could have been fast enough. What could have happened? Yeah.
Yeah, because
he could have been dead.
Or it could have been the gun was right there. He just
giving Little Bill the excuse to kill him right there.
Yeah. But he was like, and again, that look,
and again that turn where he's like, "Give it to him." Then he's like, "Give it to him."
Yeah. Give it to him.
Right? He's like,
he deserved his Oscar on this one, definitely.
Absolutely.
The way he played this character was just.
And when and the thing, getting back to the scene with Ned too, it's the brutality of that, and he's just whispering in his ear, he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to hurt no woman."
Yeah.
But I'm going to hurt you extra.
Like your lies don't match their lies.
Yeah.
It's like, oh crap!
I'm going to hurt you bad.
It's like, man, this is falling apart pretty quick. And it's just a great thing.
It's powerful.
Very powerful.
Powerful stuff. Yeah.
It leads to the question before we get to the ending, but Nick, can a man change or reconcile who he really is? Because that's what both of these people were trying to. William Money was he wasn't trying to reconcile what he was. He was trying to change what he was. At the end, I think he reconciled himself. I think he reconciled with what he was at the end. And I think Little Bill thought that he changed and thought that he reconciled everything, but I don't think he really did. Do you think that's, a part of this?
I think for sure, because I think as long as you have another day, there's hope, right? And I think not that they had the mentality, I think, of like Alcoholics Anonymous or any of this stuff, but, alcohol plays such a big role in this movie, and the town is called Big Whiskey and everything, that it's kind of like, just take it day by day. I'm not going to kill somebody today. I'm not going to. And I think that's maybe how he was living for all these years with his wife, Will Money was. And I think when he decided that, Ned is dead, that's when he takes his drink, right? For the first time. He'd been holding back so much. And I think
you almost don't realize it.
Hell with it. I'm just going to go and get revenge, right? And he sees the body and what they did, how they're like displaying it, but right up until the end. And then I think, after he did all that and killed all those people, did he have another opportunity then to be like, okay, let me start from scratch again? Maybe I can redeem myself for my kids. I don't know,
But I think at that point when he found out about Ned, right, Roland, I think that's where he reconciled. Like he understood the nature of what he was and the nature of what he could do. I agree with you that.
Yeah,
right.
He's not a pig farmer.
He's not a pig farmer. He's not. As much as he tried to be something, he's not. And
I agree with you on that. Definitely. I think he stepped into himself.
I'm not going to say he full on embraced it, Roland, but
he stepped into it.
Exactly. he understood, you know, because that's the scene when the prostitute comes and goes, oh, you know, Ned told everything. Ned told about how William Money blew up the railroad and killed women and children and he shot the marshal.
Yeah.
The resume comes out. All we've heard, right, Eric, until this point is just that he was a bad guy, supposedly did stuff. Oh, you ain't no killer. And when Schofield, right, that's when Schofield Kid kind of changes, because Schofield Kid, you know, she's saying all the things he did, and then he's kind of like, holy, like this guy is horrible. Like
once again,
like he's not just a kid. Like it's not. This isn't fun stuff. Like he did some really awful stuff, and that's when he turns, right, Eric. He's like, I don't want to. I'm not like you.
Well, once again, it's the whole like reputation. But in this case, it's all true.
Yeah.
And and that's the chilling thing about it. And that scene is so beautifully executed, by the way, with like Nick with the bottle, the subtleness of that scene, watching her, riding up,
seeing the fear on that girl's face,
and oh my God, the tension of that is so.
Any other director, I think you had mentioned this last time, Eric. Any other director would have focused on the bottle and shown him drinking and cut away. It was all like one long take, and it was perfect. It was
you almost don't realize he started drinking again, because it's just like kind of pulls the cork. And what about Ned? What do you mean Ned's dead? And it's just like you're focused on what happened to Ned, that you don't realize that he's started to take swigs from the bottle, because you're listening to what's being told to you. Like, oh no, he got caught, he got captured. It's like, no, he didn't. He's going down the South Trail. It's like, no, he didn't. And he's drinking, and the Schofield Kid is in the background sitting down, and you know, so much is revealed that the alcohol almost is like that could, like you said, that could have been a big reveal, but because of the revealing of how awful William Money is actually took over the scene, that you almost didn't realize, like, oh shit, he's drinking, like he's drinking.
He's drinking nonstop then until
he's a monster.
Away.
And he gets angry, and his face just.
And what does he say to the prostitute when she's telling him the story, and she's hearing what Ned said? He's like, "And that didn't scare little Bill, did it?" You know, it's like, you know, well, maybe I'll give him something.
Like, no, sir.
And
the kid is like, at this point, he don't know what he's like.
Even he's scared.
Yeah, and he fesses up. He goes, I didn't kill 5 people. I didn't even kill the Mexican guy. He said he killed the Mexican guy too. And he goes, no, I just hit him with the shovel. And, you know, because he had his own breakdown, you know, when he recounted. At first, it was tales of bravado when he killed the guy in the outhouse. And I shot him. And then he's like, and then I shot him, and he ain't going to live no more. And it came crashing down. Then hearing that this guy is actually a brutal killer.
Yeah.
Like this isn't. I thought this was a glamorous life, and it's not.
Before he was calling him a broken down pig farmer. He's a wimp. He's like, aren't you sick of hearing him whine and stuff about this? And
if he was such a badass, he probably would have. And that's the thing. If he was such a badass, he probably would have pushed back on the Schofield Kid, right? If he was really defend his reputation, but he's not that guy. He's the guy that's trying to walk away from it. And
if you notice, the only person that did was Ned.
Yeah,
that's the only time you see Ned like he changes. And when the kid was like, so how many guys did you kill, Ned? He's like, what the hell's that to you?
Yeah.
He says it so like chillingly, like mind your effing business,
it's not something you brag about.
That's right. That's right. Oh man,
they got so many people out to get them. Like, you probably looking over your shoulder your whole life.
Too.
You know,
but I think also it's not something to be proud of. It's not a resume. Like that's the thing, is they did what they did. You know,
and they were lucky to walk away.
Ned keeps saying that we were young and we were crazy and we're doing. You know, it's like we did these things. This is not what we do. You know, like almost like some wisdom of it's like. You know, where he had some wisdom, William Money was just trying to, hide away from who he was. And then, like we said, now that he finds out that Ned has been killed, it's a different William Money that walks into the saloon than the William Money that was hunched over that had a fever, was hunched over and not drinking. At that scene, Gene Hackman has everybody, like, they're getting a posse because they're going to go find the other 2 killers and, going to catch them. And all you hear is, you see the barrel of the shotgun.
Into the screen, right?
Yeah, you don't really see him end. You see the barrel of the shotgun and you hear like the click, like the
And he's,
and then he turns around, and just the image of Eastwood is just so like dark, and he doesn't look well. He doesn't look heroic. It wasn't like a hero shot. He's wet because it's raining out, and he's just got the shotgun there. You know, it's just,
and that's the scene that I wish I had. That's the one scene that I wish I had seen in the theater. Is that the barrel of that gun entering the frame, and it's so
such a strong scene.
The thunder booming and the lightning, and it's like, what an entrance.
Hackman's, in the middle of saying, we're going to catch these skunks. He's got
and they're all like laughing. He's like, "Yeah, we're going to come out. We're going to,
the skunk just walked in, and he's ready to be captured. And that's and Roland, the first one to get who owns this shithole, or whatever it is.
Yeah, Skinny got
man.
You killed an unarmed man. Boom.
Poor bastard.
You just shot an unarmed man.
Should have armed
himself.
Yeah.
He's going to decorate his saloon with my friend.
And that's the line, man. Every trailer, cuts it off. It just says he should have armed himself. But it's the rest of that line that shows him his motivation, and that's why he killed him. He's like, how dare he?
Yeah, like all bets are off. He shouldn't have put my friend out on display like it's like a prop, tick for tat.
Yeah.
I
think that there is a message in this where people who are, really rah for the violence, but when it hits home, it's really ugly and it's not safe, and not everybody gets out. Even though
everyone in that saloon wants to go home to their families, right?
Even the process when he comes out in the road in the street and says, I'll kill all of you if you don't bury Ned properly. Everyone has fear in their eyes.
Absolutely.
So they believe he'll be back.
Well, there's the one guy though. He's like, shoot him. And the guy's like, I'm not.
You do it.
No way.
Yeah.
Like it was all the, all the worst fears, like reality. Like reality walked into Big Whiskey. Like the reality, they had seen English Bob, and turns out he was not the reputation that he had, right? So I'm sure those guys start to, see, and I'm sure Little Bill was probably seeding doubt that these guys are not what they seem. They're not as important, and there's no big thing. And then this guy just comes in and kills 5 guys in a row. Mm-hmm. And of course, Beauchamp lives, right? He's under a body a la O'Neill in Platoon. O'Neill in Platoon, and he stands up and he starts to quiz William, like from that technical standpoint, that Little Bill, because Little Bill gets shot. Who did you shoot first? Why did you go for the? Little Bill said that you should go for the fastest one, and he's like, who'd you kill first? He goes, I don't know, but I know who's going to be last.
Yeah, and he takes off. That was it.
That was it. Yeah. Well, he says, I just been lucky at killing people. That's all it is.
That's what it comes down to, right?
Everything we have seen up to this point happens in this one scene. I think everything comes to a head, including all the talk about, not everybody's a great shot. All this, which obviously is the posse, his deputies, they can't even get. They're right there. He's right in front of them, and they each get off shots, and none of them hit Clint.
Oh yeah.
They're so horrible at it. But they're scared. They're just petrified of the situation. And Clint just takes care, boom, boom, boom. He's,
Yeah, and you see when Clint fires his second shot at Little Bill with the shotgun, he's like, misfire. He throws the shotgun at Gene Hackman, but then he ducks down and shoots. So he's got it was a little like he actually kind of almost like took a knee. So his instincts took over. He knew what he knows what he's good at. He's good at killing.
Yeah.
And that's what he's experienced at it. And he knows these other guys, they got the badges. They didn't fire. They probably never fired their weapons at somebody like Little Bill said. That you're nervous, you're scared, you're sweating. You need to remain calm, and that's what Clint did. And he just blew, laid waste, and then anybody else who wanted to get killed got the back.
You saw how nervous the deputies got, even in the scene prior where they're in the office, and the guy's like, and the guy's like, it's hot, gosh, and because they know English Bob is coming to town, so we've never gone up against these types before, so they're all nervous, or that guy was at least anyway, and they're just Little Bill, Little Bill takes care of the situation by himself, and
did he see all, whatever,
he's just
So he lays, and then like I said, Roland with the reconciling of William Money. He fully embraces the character at the end, right? When he leaves, I'll kill your family. he totally, like you said, leans into it. I think is the
Absolutely.
right word.
Yep.
Yeah. He leans into it. And like I said, he's not a pig farmer. He realized it, like you were saying. He just, at that point, he's like, nope, there's no changing who I am. I'm just not going to be a pig farmer.
Yeah.
So
and he's able to use it to his advantage in this case. Like he's able to use that reputation to get him out of a tight situation and use the fear that people already have of this awful person who is not really like that anymore.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, and Nick, like you said at the end, where the end credits is he, became a dry goods salesman and stuff. So he went back to it, but it doesn't mean he went back to that really sheepish personality. Right. And that's why I think, like I said, I think he was able to kind of find the balance of, I've done what I've done, and there's no changing that.
I guess it's knowing
that doesn't
who
mean
you
I can't. That doesn't
right?
mean I can't. Yeah, that doesn't mean I can't. Kind of like Ned. He, because in the crawls, like, he became moderately successful dry goods. Like you had said, Ned was a good farmer. He became a good farmer. Ned, right? He was able to shed that.
Yeah.
What can you do? He had those 2 kids, and that was what he could do. As long as he could provide for them and make them have, a life. Maybe that's a bit of his redemption. Even though he knows I can never take back what I've done.
Well, I almost wish that didn't happen. I almost wish he didn't know what became of him, because it's actually kind of sad when the monster comes out and it's revealed that he just didn't change. It's tragic. Yeah. We're supposed to be rooting for him, but it's like, no, by the end of it, you're like, he took care of business. Sure.
Well, I like that he was able to harness it though, right? He in the past, it always felt like it was the drink doing it and I was out of control and this and that. And
good point.
It turns out that, like he was able to harness this and use it.
In a traditional Western, they would have given him motivation where, Greedo shot first, that kind of thing. It's like that's the motivation they would have done in the traditional stuff. But this was like he shoots Skinny, in cold blood, even though he justifies why he does it. He shoots, little Bill in the face, even though he knows that he's going to die anyway. So there's no real justice. It's not the traditional Western trope of making
no big exposition of the talking villain.
He would have been the new head of Big Whiskey. I mean, that's what it would have been.
That would have been hokey, where he takes over the town and cleans it up, or the talking villain at the end, Roland. Like, we didn't get big exposition either. It's like it's kind of like that doesn't happen, right? When violence is ready to it happens. It touches
1,
off.
2, 3, done. That's usually it. No, and even going back to his kids. In the beginning, like they mentioned, when he can't shoot, like, you think that, our father killed people? Because the scene, he can't even shoot a gun. So he was even hiding himself to his kids. So I think this is pretty much, let me just be myself and I can get on with my life in some way.
He can't even hop on a horse. Right?
Yeah, he couldn't even get on a horse anymore.
He's like, I was mean to animals, and I treated them.
I did in my life.
Yeah, I treated them cruelly. Now they're paying me back for all the things I did bad. Like,
and there is a lot of humor in
really
this
film. That really God-fearing attitude,
but the pale horse doesn't want any part of him either. That's funny. It's like that. It's like he's done too. Like, he's all beat up.
It's like I've
sleeping.
Like you're not saddling up on me. Like, the horse doesn't. It's like, I don't do. I'm a farm horse now. I'm not that horse anymore either. Even the horse wasn't. And even when Ned left, before Ned got killed, Clint said, like, if something happens to me, don't tell my kids. About it, don't tell my kids what I was or any of the things I did or any of that stuff. Like, he's still there is that moral, the kids provide that moral center, and that's why I think that he was able to reconcile.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he didn't say, I'm leaving my kids behind, I'm just going to go on a kill crazy rampage.
No.
He's always had the kids in his mind of, I care about them, but there's this aspect to my personality that now I need to acknowledge it. I think he does it successfully. So
I agree with you on that.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
it's a good point. I could agree with that. And it's I like the idea of him being able to do that too, because it does add some redemption. But it's still sad that the truth does come out, and he's probably the only honest person about it the whole time. Little Bill's just trying to hide. Trying to do it because I'm wearing a badge and it's law and order, and this is the way I handle that. And but he's just not being himself there. I mean, he's just
Everybody's dying.
he's just a sadistic. Yeah, it's just Clint's just like once he figures it out, once it comes out of him, it's like like you say, now maybe he could control it. Maybe he can just
or he
deal
could really
with
be a real.
whatever
Like, it
comes
seemed
his
like he
way.
was like it seemed like he was like a fake father. Like, oh, go tend to this and go tend to that, and maybe now he can kind of be a little bit more.
Well, I think he legitimately did the job. I mean, he got the job done. He's got the money for his kids. But now his only friend that had to be done. Above on top of that, that had to be. Couldn't let them get away with that. There's just no way. So it's unfortunate that it happened to begin with. This whole situation just blew up out of control, and even Strawberry Alice, who was the
at the end,
they got it coming, but she just runs up the stairs into the room after Skinny got killed. She just like runs and hides, and she was the one that
she was the most vocal. Yeah, she was the most
exactly.
She had the most amount of bloodlust. I mean, she was like, I don't care.
Right.
They got to die, and I think the message is no one is unaffected by this.
Yeah,
that's right.
As much as and like I said, even Delilah, like I didn't think anybody was going to kill these people. Like we just, like. Almost like, was it a lark? Was it like
like what were you expecting? It's like
very straight. Like I guess because people are so detached from, and that was what this was. That the brutal reality of death and how horrible it is, and how little Bill was on the floor dying. He's like, this shouldn't have happened to me. Like I should, I had my own legend set up in my mind already.
Yeah.
That I was going to.
It's almost like having the fear of somebody coming in to get revenge was enough of their justice, because now they would always be looking over their shoulder that somebody's going to, like, maybe they were like, nobody's ever going to kill them, but now they'll always be worried that somebody would, so that could have been part of it too.
Yeah. Well, what do we say? One favorite scene each? What do you think, Roland?
Sure.
I mean, I always like the last scene. But,
you got it? Okay. Well, that's fine.
Yeah, everybody likes that. But I do I'll add two only because I think everybody will say the last scene's amazing. I like it with the prostitute when he doesn't get a freebie. Wait.
Well, you just took my scene. So how does that feel now?
Oh man.
Scene swiper.
You should have talked faster. You should have been on point. You weren't. You waited.
That's it. You're right.
But yeah, those are my two probably. I mean, like I said, the last one, and when he opens up with that prostitute with Delilah, it tells a lot of who the character is, where they are, and the whole situation of where he sees himself. And how he opens up about, I'm ugly inside. And that's like to your point of he was hiding who he was because he couldn't stand looking at himself anymore. And that's really what to me, that's what it represented. It's just a great scene. It's nice, slow.
At first he was very awkward with her, right? Yeah. When he said, "Oh, I must look as bad as you," but he didn't mean it that way. But
and then he said,
then he said, "We both have scars."
Yeah,
was what it was at the end, and there's. You don't really learn much about William Money from his own words, except for like I was drunk when I did this, but this is the first time that he really, it's a great scene you picked because he kind of is sitting down and you get to see him in I don't want to say a vulnerable state, but a state where he's open to speaking to somebody, and maybe it's easier because it's somebody that he doesn't know. And he's kind of like, I can have a conversation with this. That was one of mine too. Nick, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, that was a beautiful scene too. And he mentions his wife, right? And somebody hearing it is like his wife's still alive. So that kind of just shows how she's still haunting him and like trying to make him be a good person, But my favorite scene, I guess, it's between that and just the final scene. From the moment he's walking in, it's raining, and he sees Ned and sees the sign there about this is what happens to assassins around here. And then everything just becomes mythic, like glamorized and glorified, just like in traditional Westerns. And with someone, Beauchamp, you can see the cutaways to Beauchamp, and his eyes are glistening. Every line that's being spoken is like, I can't write this any better. This is perfect, And then, when he shoots Skinny, and he's like, this, should have armed himself if he was gonna decorate his saloon with my friend. That's just it just touches me, And then it's just brutal. It's just a brutal scene, beginning to end.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go with that as well. But I think I might have said it when we tried to do it the first time was the scene where he shoots the first cowboy. I just love
Great
the way
scene.
that played out. Like, like we talked about, it was just, the chill. It's so chilling, that scene. And there's no music. It takes a long time for this to happen. And it's just a very, it really gets to you. It makes you uncomfortable. It's like really unsettling, that scene. And just the way Clint plays it is just
he's very matter of fact
cold.
about it, and
very matter of fact, and Ned's just sitting there like
shocked.
He's just shell shocked. Yeah, he just completely melts down, and then the Schofield kid is just, what's going on? And again, if he had seen what was happening, he might have changed his tune right then and there.
3 views on the same event.
That's right.
Literally, like one guy's just like matter, like this is business. One guy's like, I can't do this.
Ned's wife, who doesn't speak any lines,
she gives him a
look.
But
the look on her face when he's going away, it's like she knows he's not coming back. Or there's that real possibility.
When she went up and to his saddle and saw the gun, she saw the rifle. She goes, "This guy's no good."
Yeah.
When he first showed, I think she knows who he is. When he first showed up, he's like, "What the hell are you doing here?"
Yeah, because he says, "Hey, Sally," or whatever, and she doesn't say anything.
Nothing.
Because if you notice, like his wife is I'm going to imagine she's Native American as well, because on the tombstone it says Claudia's Feathers.
Yeah,
could be.
So they might have known each other. Perhaps they were from the same tribe. The two of them, like they settled down with 2 women from a Indian tribe or whatever. Yeah, so I would imagine it's when
he tells the
kid
kid
shows up, he's like,
if I'm not here in 2 weeks, go to Sally 2, whatever it is.
Sally True Trees.
I'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Kill some chickens.
Kill a chicken if you need to.
Kill a hog if you have to.
Oh, you mean one of the ones with fever, Dad?
Fever separated.
One of the contaminated chickens, Dad, that you can't take care of? That's what you're leaving us with?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So all in all, a great job. We didn't really talk about Clint Eastwood's directing, but well paced. Again, he knows what he's at this point. He knew what he was doing. It was a well earned Oscar for him. Again, it kind of transcended Eastwood. People started looking at him differently after this film. Right, he became this kind of artiste. Right, in quotes, he kind of was able to shed the Dirty Harry and the man with no name type of thing, and became this guy who became really, really focused in on directing, right? That became like his main. He did films, but he's also directing stuff as powerful. That was just as good, and really was able to capitalize on that clout that he got from that Oscar, and just kind of parlay that into a great career. And he's at 92. He's still, I think he's got 2 projects in the can. I think they might be documentary style stuff, but he's still working.
Working.
Roland's looking it up.
I think I'll look it up because I do that. But I
saw you. I was like, he's looking it up.
I think he's doing a Western actually, even though we said he wasn't going to do a Western.
That'll be interesting.
If he is, he's probably not in it, I would imagine.
It'll be tough to see what he comes up with, because he really said, he's like, I don't know what else I can say about Westerns.
He lied to you. Okay, Nick, he lied to you. I know you guys have a personal conversation every day.
Dare.
And I'm telling you, he's lying to you. He talks to me on Tuesdays.
I would be the first in line to see another Western.
And he tells me what he's going to lie to you about.
I don't know. So 92, I hope he's done with acting. He just needs to.
I hope so too.
Just be in the director's chair and give us some good.
He
could play a cameo.
Cry Macho was a kind of a Western.
That's a kind of.
He was in that.
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, it's kind of a modern
Western.
But doesn't he have 2? Isn't there 2 things coming out? I think it's a documentary or something, and he might be lending might be doing some narration for or something, I think.
Oh, he's always doing some narration.
He hasn't stopped, which is the good thing. Again, 92, God bless him.
Exactly.
Real quick, do you guys have another favorite that he's done, like director, that he's made?
City Heat with Burt Reynolds.
We saw that in the theater.
Yeah, no. I've always said I loved. You know what? I wanted to see another Philo Beto. I wanted to see another bare-fisted orangutan movie, like Every Which Way But Loose. Like
I would love to see that.
He could have probably gotten away with that after this. Like he probably could have done a little kind of personal project if he wanted to, because he did corny stuff like Space Cowboys, and he still did that kind of stuff.
He did Mystic River, and then
revisit Philo Beto one more time, and Clyde the orangutan. I think that would have been. Jeffrey Lewis was probably still alive, so they could have gotten them together for some bare knuckles.
That's what I'm saying.
Brawling.
Unforgiven was such a great movie. If that was what he ended his career on, wow. But then the fact that he just kept making movies for a couple of more
$1 Million
decades. Wow.
Baby. I mean, that
I
one
don't
was
see
like, I could only
anything
watch
else
that film
coming up
once.
for him.
Nothing.
I think
Nothing
that's
Roland?
it. No,
Okay.
all I see is 2021. That's it.
I
He
could
might
be
be
mistaken.
producing something, but there's nothing else
I
coming
thought
up.
I just read something.
I mean, it might not have hit IMDb yet. That's all.
Unforgiven 2. The
That's it.
Revenge of
The Revenge.
Reforgiven.
Reforgiven.
the
Bob
Schofield
Revenge.
kid comes back.
That's it.
That's it. With his spectacles. Now he sees. Now
Schofield
things are clear.
kid is
Well,
now-
it would be
Schofield kid
interesting
is
to
now
see.
a congressman who's going to be assassinated, and William Money has to come and protect him. Kind of like kind of like in the line of fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
He's in
that was
San
a good one, too.
Francisco, and he's like, "What you
Yeah.
doing back here?
That's it.
Why are you hunting me down?"
That
Oh, yeah.
would be great.
There we go. Yeah, that's it. No, he's not
Nothing.
doing
All
much.
right. Well, that's going to do it for then. Since we've got nothing else, we've brought him up to his career at 92 years old. I think we've done a good job, fellas. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode. As always, Nick, thank you so much. You can find him at the City of Kick blog. We'll drop a link in the show notes so you can click on that.
And I will write some posts, I promise.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure, Professor. Always a pleasure.
Now that we've guilted him into creating content, he's going to do it for you. We pushed him in.
Thank you.
And of course, Mr. Roland Spurs Uruci. You can find him on the Ready Speaker Pod. Look at it. He's got the hat right now. He looks like a cowboy. He's like, partner. The way it's like, yeah, that's it right there.
That's it.
That's going to be the screenshot for our thumbnail.
There you go.
Give you the screenshot. Thank you. You can find him at the Ready Speaker Podcast on YouTube. So go ahead and check that out. We'll drop a link as well. You can subscribe to that. Doesn't cost you anything, and you'll get a little notification when he's got new episodes. A lot more prolific. He's got a couple of things per week coming out. So he's
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
So he's even got a schedule.
Yep, every Tuesday and Thursday.
Nice. Yeah. Rocking and rolling. So absolutely check that out. And after you're done on Thursday checking out Roland, you can check out our new episodes that drop every Thursday as well. So, and hit us up on social media, Instagram and Facebook at 3324. You know all that stuff. We're going to let you go. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe. It's down there. For Nick, for Roland, and of course for Eric, this has been Dean asking you to please be kind and rewind.